All right, here we go. We're going to kick it off. Ben, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it. Harry, great to have you here. So, two big animating questions that we're going to focus on today. I think the first is sort of a high level ethical question that will revolve around: is the current gambling industry predatory? Okay, so is it a predatory industry in the way it is currently constituted? I think the second question that will sort of naturally come from there is, how should we be regulating the industry? Let's start at the high level. In 2018, the Supreme Court overturned a federal ban on sports betting and essentially turned it back to the states. 6 years later, there are 38 states where sports betting is legal. It has a totalitarian grip on my media feeds. So I'll start with you, Ben. Has this been a good thing?
Well, yeah, I have a 30 seconds to answer, right? So this will be
You have
quick.
all the time you need. Well,
No,
look, this is long form.
I'm kidding. Look, I think it's been a fascinating journey as somebody who has been in the industry since 2010 and launched a section at ESPN in 2014. We always knew based off of the metrics that we saw that there was an audience for sports betting content, right? Even though it wasn't legal, it was legal in Nevada and, somewhat legal with Parlays and a couple other states. We're obviously starting to see more and more what that legal market actually looks like. In 2017, in just Nevada, it was $4.8 billion, and sportsbooks won, I think, around $250 million in revenue. Last year, according to the American Gaming Association, it was 120 billion. So in 6 years, we've gone from 5 to 120. Obviously, a lot more states.
That's in total bets wagered, right?
Correct. And of that, about 10.9 billion is the revenue that sportsbooks made last year. So obviously, we've seen it explode. Whether or not it's a good thing, I think that it was something that was going to happen regardless. I think there's been some positives and certainly some negatives over the 6 years. And I think we're seeing kind of a learning curve a bit that mirrors daily fantasy sports, which happened kind of in 2014, 2015.
Just to get us out of the gate, Ben, name a few positives.
So I think the positive is that people are doing it. We're doing it when it was illegal with a bookmaker, with an offshore book, with a gray market. And there wasn't that regulation and oversight, right? And especially with bookies, let's say you can bet on credit. And that's where people really get into even more trouble because you're betting with money you don't have. So a couple of the positives would be it's that regulated market. You're obviously getting tax revenue for the states, which didn't exist before. There is more of an oversight in terms of athletes, right? Betting, potential refs, potential scandals, in that those are things that can be tracked now. There's integrity monitors. Those are things where we can see now, right? A Jonte Porter situation in the NBA is because he placed a very large wager at a legal sports book, which was then flagged, which is then how that whole situation came to be. If that happens at an offshore book, it's a lot tougher to have that go on. And that's why we've seen a lot of this happen with players and stuff. So those are a couple of those types of positives that I would say. But in short, it's going on, it was going on, and this is a better way to do something that was already happening.
Okay, Harry, what's your read?
A couple of different things, Alex. You framed the question as, is the gambling industry predatory? I don't believe whether the industry is predatory or not is the issue. The issue is whether or not what has happened in 6 years has created a risk to public health. One need not wait for the behavior of the industry to become predatory for it to become a risk. Are there predatory actions taking place? I think Ben would even agree with me. At times there are. Are there other actions that don't rise to the level of being predatory? Of course there are. From that perspective, whether it's good or bad is less important than whether what has happened, Alex, because as you pointed out, this has only been around for 6 years. It was May of 2018 when the Supreme Court decided the Murphy case. So this entire industry of online sports betting has only existed in the United States for 6 years. In those 6 years, two things have happened. The first is, as we all agree, rapid expansion, 38 states, District of Columbia. The industry has its eyes on further growth, and certainly they're looking at California and Texas, which Ben and I will both agree will take things to even a higher level. But beyond that, I suggest to both of you that what has happened in 6 years is something that no one, certainly not the members of the Supreme Court who decided the Murphy case, no one could have foreseen the product that has been created. So when Ben makes mention of, it's different than it was before you had to go to your bookmaker. In many ways, betting with a bookmaker on the winners and losers and the overs and unders was a safer proposition than what the industry is delivering now, which is constant access to action and the betting on the speed of every pitch in every baseball game. I don't know of any bookmaker, Ben, who takes book on the speed of every pitch in every baseball game. So we're here today to talk about a fundamentally different product than society has ever seen before. And is that product a threat to public health?
So Ben, how do you speak to that? How do you speak to that difference? And what is your ethical intuitions about what the consequences have been?
The slight disagreement I would have with Harry in terms of the 6 years after PASPA and the online market is the key word being legal, right? There's been illegal and offshore online sports wagering for many, many years. I mean, back when I was in high school and before that, and 1-800 numbers and all of these things. So it certainly has existed in some form or fashion. I think the big thing, and Harry would probably agree, maybe not, is the proliferation of mobile sports betting, right? And how much now these apps are much like Uber Eats, right? Or anything. Now I can sit on my couch in many, many states. I can bet on sports. Like Harry said, I could potentially bet on every pitch if I wanted to. Not very many people are doing that, but yes, there's a wider menu of sports betting options than ever before. And there's the availability and ease of use more than ever before. And I think that's something we've seen certainly, right, in certain states like New Jersey that we saw. The handle was 90+% mobile and 10% retail, meaning people are betting on their phones wherever they are, on the couch, at the grocery store, on sports. They're not going to Atlantic City or going to another sports book to actually place the bets. And so I think that has also been a lot of what has caused many of the issues. Again, sports betting was going to be going this way regardless, right? I'm confident that bookmakers can text people, or there's Telegram, and say, hey, do you want to bet something on tonight's game? It's not going to be the same level as it's been, and I think as quickly as it's been with legalized sports betting and companies, obviously multi-billion-dollar companies now looking to make profits off of that versus individual bookmakers or offshore sites. But I think it's that mobile betting that's really been the key driver in kind of a lot of the issues that we've seen, and just how big and how quick sports betting has spread.
Ben made a statement a few minutes ago when I brought up betting on the speed of every pitch in a baseball game. And Ben, you said not many people are doing that. I will tell you that anecdotally and clinically, what I see in my practice as a gambling addiction therapist, yes, they are. People are drawn to the constant access to action that legalized sports gambling in America has created over the last 6 years. You bring up a tax revenue. First is, I am going to push back each and every time I hear the word revenue for this reason. Revenue is a gambling industry term. It's not revenue that we're discussing. Let's be very clear. The gambling industry isn't selling any products in the marketplace, or as they like to say in law schools, no widgets are being sold at market. Revenue means losses by the American public. So when you said a few minutes ago, Ben, that it's now up to 10.9 billion in revenue from sports gambling, according to the American Gaming Association, what you said was it's $10.9 billion that Americans lost betting on sports legally.
This year, it's going to be 16.
It will be significantly lower. So I think it's important. The terminology matters. From a public health perspective, this is not revenue. These are losses by the American public, money that can't be spent anywhere else, that is only going to what is actually the gambling establishment. It's going to the gambling companies, the sports leagues, the teams, the owners, the players, the advertisers, the media markets. And let's be clear, Ben, your business is part of the gambling establishment. You are marketing your business to people who are losing money betting on sports. Whether it's good or bad, is Ben predatory? Absolutely, positively not. But the whole economic structure of this model is based on one driving force: money lost by the American people.
Well, I'm glad we can just clip that off, that my business isn't predatory. So that's good. I appreciate that.
You're a
Harry.
mensch, Ben. You're a mensch for coming on. We spent a year trying to get someone to come on and at least marginally defend this industry.
Yeah, and look, I think part of this as well gets into, I'm sure, what Harry deals with every day, certainly, and his clients and gambling addicts is certainly one end of the spectrum. I think that some of it is how you're viewing that money, right? And there's a lot of different arguments that you can make. I think some of them make sense. I think some of them don't hold as much water. But I do think it is fair to say, right, that for some people, it is an entertainment cost, right? In the same way you go to a movie, you spend $15, you see Wolverine Deadpool, you have some laughs, you're not getting those $15. That's the transaction. It's 2 hours, it's $15, you see the movie, that's it. With sports betting, you could win $15. You could theoretically win $100,000 from betting that $15. But a lot of the inherent issues are, what is your income overall? How much of your bankroll is that bet? Is that the 17th bet you've made today or the first one you've made this week? What is your emotional attachment to that $10 or $15? Like, are you happy at the end and you say, hey, I could have won, this Vikings Rams game, but I ended up losing. That's okay. I had a good time sweating the bet out. Or are you now getting further and further agitated and you're sending DMs to athletes on Twitter and going down that path? So I think there's a lot of things in between there as to the amount of bet, the frequency of the bet, and what that potential loss is doing to a bettor.
So we have to drill down here. We really, yeah. So
I just one thing, and Ben said the clients, the gambling addicts that I treat. To be clear, I treat people who are working very hard to overcome gambling disorder. I don't want to in any way put the label "I treat gambling addicts." I know you didn't mean it that way.
Yep.
I treat people who are working very hard to overcome a debilitating disorder. It's interesting, Alex, because Ben raises some great points here, and I think these points go back to where we started today, which is you phrase it as, is it good or bad what's happened in 6 years? I don't like the idea of good or bad. I like to talk about what happened over 6 years. And what you describe, someone may take 15 or 50 or 100, whatever was within their budget, and choose to enjoy themselves making a bet on a game. However, that is neither the audience the gambling industry is marketing to, nor is it how the product has evolved in just 6 years. I took 2 thumb clicks while the three of us are chatting, and I'm able with 2 thumb clicks to log into a legalized gambling online sport. I won't name the platform. I can do it with any of them. I don't have an account for obvious reasons. I'm a gambling addict in recovery. I've made a bet since April 27, 2014. But with 2 clicks of my thumb, I can do the same thing a 9-year-old can do. I can get into and see an entire sports gambling platform. Right now, it's 11:38 a.m. on a gorgeous Friday morning in Boston. And first thing that pops up on my phone is betting on every point in a table tennis match from the Czech Republic. That product, first of all, no bookmakers ever did it. No offshore books ever did it. It is designed to keep people in constant action. That's what this new product does. That's not designed for the $15 better. That product, whether it's 11:38 in the morning or 8 o'clock tonight during the World Series, every single thing the industry does is reaching out to people to keep them in constant action, in constant action with total access to bets at all times. We have known since 2013, at least, that gambling is an addictive product on the level of heroin and opioids and tobacco and alcohol and cocaine. I don't believe any scientist disagrees with that any longer. If you take any addictive product and you deliver it at light speed with constant access to that product, you are going to hurt people as day follows night. So what has happened in 6 years is what we're talking about now. And I think the discussion gets framed as, is that a direct threat to the public by delivering it in the way that it's being done?
And I just want to crisp up a few data points to kick it to Ben. New Jersey has seen a 3x increase in calls to gambling hotlines and reports of addiction. The median age in Gamblers Anonymous in many of the reported cases has dropped 20 years. It used to be folks in their sort of late middle age to later age. Charlie Baker put out a statistic that on college campuses, that students living on campus, 67% of students living on campus are betting. That's male and female right now, and tend to bet at a higher frequency. So how do you respond to the public health question right now? Do you see it as all just sort of anecdata, or do you think there is a real issue that the past 6 years of legalization has exacerbated on some real scale?
I think it is without doubt that there are more calls to gambling hotlines. I do think there is a little bit, and I do think that is because there are more problem gamblers. I do think that's also because it is legal in these states now, and it wasn't legal before. If I was doing an activity that was illegal, would I probably want to call on myself? Probably, potentially not. So I do think that there is a correlation. It's difficult to argue against that, but I do think some of it is the legality as well. Of
how
that.
much? Let's really get into this, Ben, because this is the fundamental point here. Is there was a denominator in 2017, which was how many people are gambling, right? The question now is that denominator much greater, right? Has legalization brought people that would otherwise not have been doing this, both because of the access and because of the tactics that Harry has cited? And I want to know your answer, because I literally was at a cafe 2 months ago and saw a bunch of high school kids walk into the cafe, like 7 of them, and they bet on their phones the whole time. That would not have happened. Like, I don't see any way that was happening a decade ago. So let's have an honest conversation about that, the new denominator and the delta between that and the...
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that there's more now. You have more states. There's more states that are legal. You have, I think, the mobile product, right, as well. And then, like everything, right, it's going to be word of mouth and handed down. And there's a 21-year-old who just turned 21 and his brother's 25 and he's been betting. And so now he has, access and those stories, and he follows these people on Twitter and all that. That's going to happen. I think the big thing is, like I said, the mobile betting and the ease of access, right? If it's 2013 and I'm a 17-year-old, it's a lot less likely I'm meeting some random bookie at a McDonald's in Kansas City than if now there's some other apps I can have directly on my phone, and sweepstakes and DFS 2.0 and et cetera, where now sometimes the legal age is 18, not even 21. So there's so many more options as well. I don't think there's any way you can deny.
So there's way more young people are being brought into this. I think there are two key questions, and I'll stay with Ben here. Is the core business model of the current industry and the way it functions, is it built around addiction? Okay. And here is a statistic, Ben, I'd love for both of you to respond to, but the state of New Jersey in 21 did a comprehensive study and said that 5% of bettors were responsible for 70% of the sports gambling revenue. The 16 billion in revenue this year, is that going to be from, quote, air quote, responsible gamers like me that throws, a bet every other month or every other week? Or is the vast majority of that $16 billion being fueled by 5% of people who have real deep addictions? That's question one. Ben, what do you think?
A lot of what I've tried to do in my career is help bettors essentially become smarter, right? Here are tools to use to make more intelligent bets. Here's a bunch of reasons you shouldn't be betting same game parlays. There's a lot of things that you can do to become a smarter bettor. If it's an activity, like we said, you decide you're an adult, you want to engage in, it's legal. There's a lot of, I understand, like steps and ifs, but that's kind of the I guess tack that I have taken, is that people are going to be betting. I'm trying to give more guardrails and help them so that they're not getting to that point where they are irresponsible. And that I think
the industry cuts them off if they do well.
Alex, I need to step in here. Ben, you said you try and help people be more responsible. People, and you described them, people as problem gamblers. People aren't problem gamblers. There are people who have gambling problems. The problem is the product is dangerous. The people who are betting same game parlays are not irresponsible people. They are moms and dads, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. They're people. And the industry is marketing a product that didn't exist 4 years ago. We need to talk about how this product came to be, because the issue is the dangerous and defective nature of same game parlays. Ben, here's something you and I are going to agree on. There's no such thing as a safe same game parlay. They are bets that the industry is pushing because they are A, the most profitable, and B, the ones that people are most likely to get hooked on. The former chief financial officer of DraftKings, a gentleman by the name of Jason Park, told an investor conference that DraftKings has the technology to identify which players have, to use the word Mr. Park used, a proclivity to engage in same-game parlays. DraftKings just purchased a company called Simplebet. They purchased Simplebet so that they now own, inside DraftKings, the artificial intelligence technology to create betting opportunities at light speed and target which users like which types of these same game parlays. It's not about people being irresponsible. It's about an industry creating a product that didn't exist a couple of years ago. And that product's dangerous.
Look, there's going to be a lot I agree with Harry on. I think this is something, right? These are essentially what are called correlated parlays. These are something that Vegas books specifically did not offer, because they didn't want you to be able to bet these two things that correlated together. There's a greater chance potentially that people could win. A lot of the issues with same game parlays is that the bettor doesn't know what the true odds actually are, right? If I have Cooper Kupp 45 plus receiving yards, and then somebody Puka Nacua 75 plus receiving yards, and Rams -3, and the over, I push it down from 47.5 to 44, and they say that's plus 750. I say, oh, great. I bet $10. I win 75. That sounds good.
Sounds
the
good.
True odds.
Right.
Sounds good. The true odds for that could be 14-1. They could be 50-1. I don't know that as a bettor. By I mean the very casual bettor who's placing 90% of same game parlays. And yes, obviously that's why sports books are going to push them, because they're going to win more money off of them. There's a reason that FanDuel created it and that others copied it several years ago, right? They were the first.
There's a difference. There's a difference. I cut you off. I apologize.
No, I was going to say, look, I think it's like any other business, right? Where is that line in, down in the horizon between what a sports book would consider a good customer and where it goes into an issue? right? And where there is a gambling problem. And I think that there isn't a defined nature, perhaps, because it's much like when you have a bet, right? And there's a 5-leg parlay and I've cashed 4 of them. And do I hedge? Do I not hedge? It's a little different for every person, and how much the bet is, how much I stand to win, what's my income, could I do without this money, etc. I think a lot of this stems from, you start with these small wagers, right? I bet X amount on the Vikings to cover and I lost or I won, but now I've bet over a month and I'm up $20 or I'm down $20. Well, this isn't that exciting. Let me push all in with some of these parlays and other things, because I saw, and I think this is what Harry alludes to, I saw, whether that's on TV, on Twitter, on some other social media, I saw somebody bet $10 and they just won $100,000. That could be me, right? And I think that that's where some of that advertising gets into some of those issues, and people are pushed a little more quickly towards potentially that path in the horizon of where that customer who could potentially be fine using sports betting in a legal fashion, it's not impacting them in as big a way, to a problem area.
See, what you said there, Ben, you started the analysis by saying, when you were referring to DraftKings and FanDuel, you said these words, like any other business. And this is where things fundamentally go awry. This is not like any other business. The only comparisons that we can really make here are to tobacco, alcohol, and perhaps pharmaceuticals. Let's start with tobacco and alcohol, 2 other known addictive products, because what we have to recognize, and in what you described, you're describing trying to educate people. Well, you have to remember, and maybe I should have said this at the start, it's important for anyone listening to this to understand, in no way am I opposed to gambling. The people I work with, Professor Daynard, Professor Gottlieb, and our team at the Public Health Advocacy Institute, we're not prohibitionists. We're not opposed to gambling. We are here to make this safer and protect public health. That's what our mission is. We bring big ideas to public health and social justice problems. So, Ben, when you talk about educating people, where I disagree with you is, I'm going to take you back to, and I guess I have to do this, Alex, because when you went and talked about younger people, you said, Ben, guys like you and me, and I was, first time I felt excluded in this call. We'll have conversation
my
about
apologies.
that.
You are a youthful, whatever you are.
Be very
I
careful.
Have no idea, but you're deeply youthful.
See, this is what folks do to you. A deeply youthful, whatever I am. I recently just turned 60. So that's whatever I is right now.
Dude, 60 is the new, 45.
It's easy for you to say that, Alex. It's currently 60 is what it is. Okay. It's to use the vernacular of the day, it's over 59 and under 61. So those of you watching at home when this started, who took the under 61,
I would have taken under. I would have taken the under for a lot of money.
The question is, what would you have parlayed it with? That's the real question. I thank you for that, Alex. That's very kind. The issue is not educating people about how to bet differently, Ben. The issue is, how has this brand new product gotten created? How is it being marketed? How is it being distributed? How is it being pushed on the public? And why is it so dangerous? Because if we want to prevent harm, we have to regulate the distribution, the advertising, the promotion of a new and defectively, dangerously designed product, i.e., online gambling with constant action. Same game parlays, Alex and Ben, are now down to same drive parlays. They offer you ready-made parlays on every snap of the ball. The human brain can't consume an addictive product that quickly, particularly if you're under 30 years old, because it's not just the gambling industry. The leagues and the teams and the players and the owners are selling their data to the gambling industry for billions of dollars. They are profiting on the creation of this product, and they're placing their own fan base in danger. If you're a 14-year-old child sitting down with your parents or your aunt and uncle to watch the World Series tonight, you are going to be inundated with in-game gambling references. We're normalizing something that shouldn't be normalized the way it has been. It's not just DraftKings and FanDuel and ESPN Bet. There's an infrastructure here that's created this dangerous product.
I mean, Ben, I would love your thoughts on the integration and the sort of sports betting industrial complex, because you probably know more about it than anyone on the planet. You were involved in it early on.
I was at the Supreme Court case and covering it. There was certainly quite a pivot from the sports leagues in terms of, obviously wanting sports betting not to be legalized in New Jersey, and versus all of a sudden it was, and now there's advertising deals and obviously the official league data and all of that. Some of that, I think I have less of an issue with the data, because some of that is just another form, essentially, of another bucket of money for the NBA, for example. Gambling, related advertising and revenue is split between the owners and the players. It's another bucket in the same way that they're selling ads on jerseys, right? And that's advertising revenue. I do agree with the marketing and advertisements and the frequency. That is something I think that, much like states were very quick to legalize sports betting and we're throwing out tax rates, and it doesn't need to be mobile, it can just be retail. And we got a hodgepodge of regulations. And obviously then some states had these massive revenue projections, which didn't come to fruition because they didn't have mobile betting associated with them. I do think that we now are starting to go in the right direction in terms of how much advertising there should be, when the advertising should be.
What is the right direction? Every minute of every day on every feed?
In that there's been a lot less. There's, depending on your perspective, there's certainly been plenty of advertising. There's less over the last few years than there was in 2021, let's say, and all those. In terms of the NFL and others have restrictions in terms of how many ads can be shown per half, per quarter, etc.
I disagree, Ben. I think you're right. There are some restrictions. What has shifted is the gambling companies, rather than advertising on national broadcasts all the time, are doing it differently. The pregame shows. I watched the Fox pregame show this past Sunday, and the last 5 minutes of the pregame show are each of the broadcasters in the pregame show picking their favorite same game parlay. Within the games, they're talking about this, and the gambling companies have switched to less expensive regional advertising on regional sports networks. So while it may be regulated by the NFL during national broadcasts to not more than, I think, 6 ads a game, correct me if I believe it's 6.
I think it's 6, yep.
I think it is as well, but that's still 6 ads during football on a Sunday afternoon when you're watching with your children. How many tobacco ads do we see during that game? It's an addictive
not too many. Yeah.
None, because it's not permitted. We permit the advertising of a known addictive product 24 hours a day when we know children are watching. Gambling companies are spending billions. Absolutely. The NFL, all the sports leagues are getting more and more TV revenue than ever before. The gambling companies are buying this data. So the industry is spending billions and billions with a B. The only way they get that money back, they're not selling anything in the marketplace. They get it back through gambling losses of the public. So the business model, Alex, is they have to keep people all the time in constant action. That's why right now you can bet table tennis.
The thing I want to pause on, and it's also that the past 6 years has actually fundamentally shifted the nature of sports fandom and the culture around how sports are enjoyed. I mean, I surveyed about 36 different people across many groups, but the real affiliation is with who they bet on. Like the way that I cheered in college when the Red Sox won their first World Series, or for the Patriots when they won their first Super Bowl, like people are cheering for that, for the Ukrainian table tennis, like random person, right? Or for some random Minnesota Twins game. So like the nature of the way young men in particular, are engaging with sports has shifted in a way I did not realize. Now, Ben, Harry, this is in no way to stigmatize you. Ben, you are in that demographic. You are in the, 16 to 35 sports fan demographic. Is that does that track?
Yeah. I wish I was 35. No.
You just lost your parlay. I think he's 36 or 37. You just lost your.
Come on.
I'm 37. Yes.
He's, again, youthful, super youthful.
Close. No, look, I think that speaking from my perspective only, when I was kind of introduced to sports betting as in my career, I viewed it kind of as a different prism with which to view sports, right? I was not betting. It was just something that's interesting. Hey, as opposed to just the Yankees won or the Red Sox won, or in football, right? What was the spread? Did they cover? What's the total? And it was kind of this, secret clubhouse, and there were guys in Vegas and they had nicknames and all this stuff. It's very different than it was today, but I think the principle is still the same, and that is it's a different way with which to view sports. Mayweather McGregor, how can you even start to talk about that fight without having odds on who is going to potentially win? So those are, to me, like it's an interesting news type of piece that is different than the tout industry and a lot of what has certainly penetrated now, which is who can I bet on? What am I betting on? How should I bet? And what am I betting on right now?
I have a number of clients right now who are in their early 20s. They don't know or remember sports as anything other than being inexorably linked to gambling. We as a society do not yet know what the social cost of essentially taking sports away from a traditional cultural family entertainment experience. What we've gone and done with this new model, this new online gambling product that right now on DraftKings at 12:19 in the afternoon, there are 103 live betting opportunities, right? So if you're waking up in California right now at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're going to work, you've got 103 live in-game things you can bet on in sports. We don't yet know, because we haven't started to study it, what the cultural and sociological impact is going to be on families. We do know that what we're talking about here is the normalization of an addictive product. And I ask us all to think back to, and I get to say this, Alex, before my time in the 50s, this was what the tobacco industry did. We made Joe Camel cool. We made it cool. We made it sexy to smoke cigarettes, even though we knew that it was an addictive product. And we're going to do it again with the gambling industry. And I just want to add the last piece of it. It's not the winning. For a person who is struggling with gambling, it is the way the action makes them feel.
It's the sweat.
And for the person who is struggling, winning is in some ways worse than losing, because when you're winning, you might have to stop. But when you're losing, you can chase more and more and more action. And part of the diagnostic criteria for gambling disorder is the chase of action. The very thing this new product is delivering is part of the diagnostic criteria. And Ben, I'm glad you used the word sweat, because, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, because of some of our public health work, the gambling industry agreed to drop the term no risk bet. The American Gaming Association said, we're not going to let our members use the term no risk bet. So they replaced it with no sweat bet. And you know what? That's actually a slap across the face of people who are struggling. It's a slap across the face of the public health movement, because if you're sweating a bet in the first place, you had no business making that bet. That's verbiage that speaks to the person looking for action, and they know it.
I understand where you're coming from. I think that inherently that is the experience, right? I would go back to the movie analogy, right? Like different people are getting the sweat or the action, to me, done responsibly, and I think that's where the definition of that potentially differs. I don't have an issue with, because you could bet $1 on the game and you could have that same sweat as betting $500. And so for a person, that is, you're getting the action for a lesser amount. The issue is, I think, that for people. You start low and then you get more and more and more incremental.
They don't offer a $1 no sweat bet. The advertisements are $1,000 no sweat bet. That's what we see. That's what they're pushing.
For the promo. I think it's up to. Yeah.
Right.
It's
It's
not,
up to.
it doesn't
but
have to be $1,000, but yes.
No, but the ad says $1,000 no sweat bet. We agree on that, right?
Yep.
And you just said that the problem is people don't want just $1. They need increased action. That is also part of the diagnostic criteria for gambling disorder. The very thing they're offering is the thing we're worried about. And let me ask you this as well. On the no sweat bet, they don't give anybody their money back, right? They give people who have lost $1,000 for their no sweat. They give them 1,000 credits that have to be used within either 7 or 14 days to chase the money they just lost. The very behavior that you just said we need to be worried about, people increasing their action. This is at the dangerous nature of the product and the conduct of the industry. So when I hear you say things like helping people not be irresponsible, the issue is the way the gambling companies push this on the public. $1,000 no sweat
But I
bet
guess I would,
is a threat to public health.
I would push back in that you have agreed that you think sports betting should be legal, correct? So you legal, regulated, etc. This to me is the same like a restaurant that has an amazing pastry. They're going to give you a free sample, and you're probably going to want to go in and buy the whole thing. Like it's getting people into the environment.
It's the same as the neighborhood dope dealer who gives the good client or the new customer the $10 bag. We're talking about an addictive product. We're not talking about a nice tasty piece of pie. We're not.
It's not a cannoli.
But you just said that should be legal. So I guess my question is, how would you introduce it then to?
Let's advertise the existence of the sports book. In fact, you'll see in the legislation I helped draft, we're not looking to ban the opportunity to advertise that FanDuel exists, that people can bet on sports. We are looking to regulate the content and timing of the advertising. A no sweat bet is designed to keep people in action. If you've lost your $1,000 bet, we don't want you to walk away. We want you to stay with us. We're going to give you credits. We're not going to give you any money. Your sweat is gone. Your money's bye-bye. It's in money heaven. We'll give you some credits to keep you going. That is predatory. Saying that is a predatory act to say to someone, you have just lost money. We don't know whether you could even really have afforded that $1,000. We just induced you with an ad that said you don't have to sweat.
Sorry. I'm going to jump in. Ben, did you read the New York Times, The Athletic article from a week and a half ago that detailed a veteran who lost $110,000 over 2 years? I mean, you did read it. I mean, do you recall what they did, what the virtual host, after he had lost $60,000 the first year, he stopped betting, he was getting counseling, and the virtual host from FanDuel, right when he knew he had paychecks, right when he knew the time when he was drinking or with his friends, would offer him $500 to get back into it, right? They offered him over $7,000 in free money to feed his addiction. I don't know why we can't use predatory.
No, look, I think these are all important topics, and the fact that we are passionate about it is good. And I don't disagree with a lot of what Harry is saying. I'm not going to agree with 100% of the things that sports books and advertising and all that. I think that's what I was referring to. And look, I think some of what you're referring to, Alex, is essentially VIP programs. I think if you're looking for a target-rich environment for clients for Harry, that is generally, whatever percentage that's going to be is going to far outweigh in those programs than the overall amount of people betting.
Alex, you said host and Ben said VIP. It's important. The three of us are doing a service to people who are listening to this. And a lot of people listening to this aren't going to know what a host and a VIP host is. If we had a host in the liquor business, we would shut the bar down. A person whose job it is in the gambling industry to target the people who gamble the most and the most often, to take care of their needs, to feed their needs with one goal in mind, keeping them engaged in gambling action on that platform. If we had that in a restaurant, government would shut the restaurant. In the gambling industry, they're called VIP hosts, and their salary is based on how much people gamble. End it now. I obviously can't talk about specific examples as a therapist. I will just tell you generically, I have seen the email exchanges between the clients I'm privileged to treat and their hosts. I have seen what clients say to hosts and what hosts give trying to bring clients back. Ben and I could talk today, and I think we would probably agree on this one. The online gambling companies use something called reload bonuses. This is a nightmare, and regulators either don't know or are turning the other cheek, where your account goes to zero, where you're out of money. They will send you an email saying, hey, if you reload your account with money, we will increase it by 25%. That is the equivalent of a neighborhood dope dealer trying to keep you in action. And oh, by the way, did I mention we're talking about an addictive product here? So what has to happen? And we have to shift away from saying this person's responsible, this person's irresponsible, and we have to look at the conduct of the industry.
We agree on a lot of these points. And in general, right, we both agree that sports betting should be legalized and regulated and given tax to the states. I think that I would agree that, look, I don't think any of us, when we were there in 2018, yes, everyone knows gambling's been around for thousands of years, right? I'm sure there were VIP hosts in Rome about dice and all, like they've been in Vegas. This is the same industry that's been around. I think there are two fundamental or three catalysts, right, that have gotten us kind of to this place that perhaps we didn't see us getting this quickly or potentially ever, right? One is the rise of mobile betting. Two is same game parlays and the push of high hold products like that. And three is COVID, right? That is a massive, massive rocket ship in terms of people are in states where sports betting is legal, potentially states where it isn't legal. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. There's also nothing to bet on until there's Ukrainian table tennis and Russian and UFC comes back, right? There was no market. There's nothing to bet on. I think COVID pushed as well and accelerated a lot of these potential issues, and people became much more familiar with this in a very short period of time than otherwise would have happened if, let's just say, 2020, 2021 was a quote unquote normal couple of years.
So what you're saying, Ben, is the industry got people hooked.
I'm saying I think it accelerated some of the process by which people who would be in that situation probably got there faster.
Or people who wouldn't have been in that situation had the industry not created, as you said, your words, a fundamentally different product. The anecdotal evidence is everywhere. Harm is taking place. We got a fundamentally different product. We got a problem. Now it's time for government to step in and say, wait a minute. You didn't exactly tell us this is what was going to happen.
Well, I have a question just to play devil's advocate. I'm not saying I 100% believe this. Obviously, we're referring to sportsbooks as businesses. I understand that there is the extraction of profits, but that's how they're making money. There's also advertising and other things. It's not just that they're taking money from people when the people are losing sports bets. In essence, isn't a same game parlay or those others a way that they're looking to maximize profits in the same way that you would do with another type of business? And ultimately, I'm not going to disagree with you in terms of the nature of it and potentially how it's advertised and the pushing, like I said, on social media of this person bet $10 to win 100,000 and all of this. I think it is on people as well to know the risks. Are the risks fully being explained to them? No, of course not. I think that's totally fair to say, but I also think isn't it unfair that a business wouldn't be trying to make a product that would make them more money in the same way? I go back to a restaurant or a movie theater, some other way. If they found a way that people wanted to watch 4 movies and pay $75 for a day, and a public health person would say, well, you probably shouldn't be sitting in the same place for 8 hours. That's probably not great for exercise. They're just looking to have a product 2.0, I guess, setting aside the nature of, you feel that it's more addictive and all that. Isn't it essentially a way to make a more profitable product on the base level?
It's not the nature that I feel it's more addictive. It's the science that it's a known addictive product. It's not my opinion. It's scientific fact that gambling is an addictive product. I agree with the setup of your premise, and I believe your premise actually proves the need for public health regulation and reform, and here's why. DraftKings is, in fact, a publicly traded company. The board of directors of DraftKings, the chief operating officer, the entire organization at DraftKings has an obligation to their shareholders to try and maximize as much revenue as they can. No question about it. Just like Marlboro and R.J. Reynolds did in the 60s with tobacco. They absolutely have an obligation to their shareholders to make as much money as they can. They are trying to keep people as actively engaged, gambling as much as they can. That's the business model. They are doing it with artificial intelligence and delivering an addictive product at light speed. State government is ill-equipped to respond to that. The federal government needs to step in and say, okay, we have to put guardrails up here. And those guardrails must be public health guardrails to keep the public safe. I think that's where, Ben, you and I should agree because of your setup.
I do think that, like many other products, sports betting, there are going to be addicts, right? But you are also going to say the same thing for alcohol, for food, for exercise, all those things not done in a moderation and with those guardrails can lead to that. I think some of what you're saying is that some of the products are more fundamentally geared towards addiction, like same game parlays and others, in a way that maybe even just normal sports betting isn't. Or are you just saying in general it's an addictive product like a cigarette or something like that?
I love the pushback with alcohol. When's the last time you went into a bar and the bartender said, buy one, the next 10 are on me? When's the last time you went into a bar and a bartender said, look, that one's getting a little low, quickly, let's have your next one. Hey, did you know since you ordered that drink, you could double it up with another and get drunk even faster? Here's the difference though. There are laws in every single state that hold liquor license holders liable civilly if they overserve someone. Not a single state has passed yet equivalent legislation to hold the gambling industry accountable and create a private cause of action so that someone who is injured, either the gambler or someone connected to them, an impacted other, can bring a cause of action to hold the gambling industry accountable for its conduct. We have dram shop laws. We have set the legal limit for driving an automobile has been reduced to 0.08. There are so many safeguards government puts in place. Gambling is the only addictive product where the business model is deliver it as quickly and as rapidly as possible, and government takes a piece of the revenue from that.
Great. So I want to say it's not just that there's some number of people that inherently will become addicts and everyone else will be responsible. It's that the nature of addiction will sort of expand and contract based on the nature of the product. So I just want to put that out there. We have a thing called steelmanning. Steelmanning is the opposite of a straw man. It is making the most solid, rigorous argument that you disagree with, that is uncomfortable for you to make, but it is sort of taking your disagreement partner or the opposing opinion and making that case in the most persuasive way to show that you empathize with it, to show that you understand it. We'll start with Harry. So Ben will give you a grade, and then you will give Ben a grade.
So if I were in the position of the American Gaming Association, what I would say is simply this. Gambling has been around since the dawn of time. It's quite probable when the first cave person invented the first wheel, some schmuck 3 caves down was laying 3-to-1 odds the wheel wouldn't work. And gambling's going to be around when the sun explodes. Somebody's going to take an over-under on how cold it's going to get and how quickly. The public enjoys gambling. Technology's here. It's here to stay. And sports aren't going anywhere. Now we have to find a way for all of these things to come together. That's what the gambling industry should be saying. And when they begin to say it, they will realize that the public health model is there to help them as well.
Ben, all right, so make the case for Harry, like the most rigorous Harry case that you can make, and we'll let Harry grade you. But we didn't grade Harry. Harry, yeah, we'll give it a B. It was, it was okay. Ben, let's see if Ben can get it.
Tough grader, man.
Yeah.
So I think in general that I think the argument would be agreeing with Harry, and I think we have that common ground that sports betting and gambling has been around forever in Las Vegas and other places. The issue is not necessarily the fundamental issue of gambling being around. It's the sports leagues are so in bed with gambling, right? And it's so integrated now in sports media and all of that. The real issue is the proliferation of online sports betting and same game parlays and the constant advertising, basically both directly to people who can bet and then inadvertently to people 18 to 21 and younger than that, and the lack of guardrails that are there in order to indoctrinate the younger generation into sports betting and gambling. So sports betting in general, been around, understand it's going to be there, continue to be there. The issue is some of the products that are being pushed and the way that sports books are advertising those products, as well as some of the introductory offers as well.
And unlike my friend Alex, I'd give you a solid A-. There's always room to grow,
Hey.
but a solid A-.
There we go. This was so fun. Thank you both so much.
It was enjoyable. Thank you. Good to see you, Ben.
Got it.